Alright, this video is going to be for tearing down the Suzuki Savage. Here we have a donor bike, an 86 Suzuki Savage with about, 2,500 on the clock. This is one of the original models with the 4-speed transmission on the silver engine case. Excuse me. 2,800 miles on the clock. So first thing we're going to do is take off the seat. Underneath the seat there's either a Phillips screw or I think it's a 10mm bolt. Take those two bolts off. That way you can take the seat right off. And then in the back of the tank there's two bolts holding the tank to the frame. Go ahead and take those off. Keep the rubber grommets. You'll be reusing those. There's also some on the underside of the bracket. Shown here in this video. Next step, we're going to take off the fuel line from the petcock. Once you remove that, we're going to lift the tank up off of the frame. It can be a little tricky. You have to get the petcock around the side of the frame, so just take it easy. And underneath, you'll see we have to disconnect the electrical connection from the gauge cluster and the speedo cable. You can either disconnect it from the engine or from the gauge. Take off the petcock. Take out the petcock from the fuel tank, as well as the gauge cluster and the gas cap before you pack it up and ship it to us. Once everything's off the tank, you can set that aside. Next, we're going to take the side covers off. There's two screws, one on the top, one on the side. And these, and then the rectifier from the back fender. Keep those two screws on the rectifier, as you'll be reusing those when we reattach it to the battery box. Here I'm showing a picture of the electrical connectors. They're bullet type connectors on the older models, as shown here. And some of the newer models have connectors. Don't worry, the wire coating is all the same, and we'll be talking more about that on the build video, the differences between the two bikes. Okay, next here we got the air box. We're going to be taking off the air box. There's bolts on either side. Here on the left top there's a bolt. Here's the belt guard cover. We can there's two bolts on the swing arm, kind of hidden up underneath. You can take those off. Take off the side plate of the engine that goes over the drive pulley. And then you'll see two Phillips screws on the chrome belt cover. Here we got the battery box bolt. We can take the top bolt off the battery box, as well as the bottom screws on the bottom of the battery box. This next video, people have been asking us what we can cut off the swing arm. So this next video is going to show the parts that need to come off the swing arm. This bottom tab here is a necessary removal. You have to take this one off in order for the kit to work. But here's the video showing the tab being cut off. Now you can choose to, you have to cut the one off. You can choose to shave the entire tab off if you like, as well as basically everything else on the swing arm. None of it's being used. So you can choose to cut off all the tabs. Now we're going to be going over some of this stuff in the build-up videos, so don't worry if you're not getting it all now. Here's a close-up shot of that tab, bottom part of the tab getting cut off. Don't worry if you missed some of this cuts and modifications. We're showing some of these just to get you prepped, but the build-up videos will also be covering this stuff again. These two tabs are not being used. If you feel like cutting them off, you can, as well as this tab here holding the brake line, and the other tab here by my pointer finger. None of these tabs are actually used on the swing arm, and if you get it modded by us, we can shave off those tabs for you if you'd like. Here we can take off these shocks on either side, as we're going to be removing the rear wheel. Loosen up the lock nut on the back, and then we'll pull the axle out of the wheel. Take off the brake rod here. You can see that you have to take off the brake line, pull the axle out, and then you can take the rear wheel right off. It's a lot easier if you take the shocks off and lower it way down. Next step is pry the rubber bushings out of the hub. You want to pop these out with a screwdriver. And you're going to be sending the hub to us, so you can either unspoke the nipples, you can take the nipples off the spokes, or you can just cut them as I've done here in this shot. I use bolt cutters. It's an easy way to quickly remove all the spokes from the hub. You're going to set that hub aside, and you're going to send that to us with your gas tank in order to get the to get it relaced to an 18-inch wheel. Here we're going to take off the key switch. This next shot is going to be showing the drilling out of the key switch. Once again, we're going to go over this in the build-up video, but here's a shot of the drilling out of the key switch. This is a 1/4-inch drill bit. You're going to be basically drilling out the center of the key switch mounting hole because it's going to be remounted in the tank plate with the CS-1 kit. So we need to drill this out with a 1/4-inch drill bit. Once you've drilled that out, you can put that aside as that'll be reused later in the tank plate. Here's going to show another modification we're going to be doing. There's a triple light set that's under here shown in this shot. On the gauges, that plastic piece is going to be reused, where the lights, because we're going to be reusing the neutral light and the turn signals. This little area is going to be shaved off of the plastic. Now once you pull that out, as in this next shot, you'll see I have not removed the plastic part, so this is the side that's going to be shaved down a little bit. You can do this with a sandpaper or a belt sander or anything of that sort. It's plastic, so it's easily shaved. Here's a shot of it shaved down. So that's another part that's going to be modified. And don't worry if you're not getting all this, as we're going to go back over this on the build-up video. I'm just giving people a little heads up on some of the modifications that they can get started on. Okay, next we're going to take off the grips. First thing you need to do is cut the rubber grips off of the handles. On the clutch side, you can cut it off, undo the controls, the turn signal controls, and the horn controls with a screwdriver. And on the right-hand side, on the throttle, you can do the same thing with a screwdriver. You undo the controls. On the risers, you're going to go ahead and loosen those up with an Allen head. Take off the nuts from the bottom of the risers and pull those out. And set those off to the side. You're going to... okay, here's the air box. So we're back on the air box now. Getting rid of all the bolts on the air box. There's the top right, there's a bolt, and then the bottom left, as well as the tube going into the carburetor. Now, one of the tricks you're going to need to use here, in order to get the airbox out of the frame, you want to go ahead and pull the carburetor off of the engine. It's just the throttle cable and the clamp holding it to the engine. Pull the carburetor off, and it makes getting the airbox out much easier. Next step, we're going to take the chrome top covers, the chrome covers off the top of the engine. Take the 2 bolts out of each side, as well as the breather tube off the top right. And on the top left, once that chrome cover is off, this bolt needs to be cut off or removed. It's hard to remove unless you take the tops of the heads off, so we just recommend cutting it. If you want to do the easy way, you can just cut that bolt off right smooth, flush with the top of the engine. It's not going to be used anymore. The decompression solenoid attaches to the engine right here. Those 2 Phillips head screws need to be removed, as well as the decompression solenoid itself from the frame. So you can take off the decompression solenoid as well as the ignition coil from the frame. Set that off to the side. It'll be reused. The decompression solenoid will not. If you have a California bike, this charcoal canister from underneath the swing arm needs to be removed, as well as the bracket that holds it and the muffler. So the top motor mount Allen head bolt here next to the swing arm will be removed, as well as these 2 nuts holding the bracket to the muffler. It kind of doubles as the canister bracket and the muffler bracket. Okay, here to get the muffler and exhaust system off, there's also another clamp that's attached here, as well as the 2 header bolts that are attached to the engine. Once you remove all those, you're going to need to take off the motor mount bolts here, and the forward control bolts. Once you take those off, you can get the exhaust out of the way, remove this nut here that holds the heat shield, and that way you can separate the header from the muffler. Once you separate the header from the muffler, another modification that's going to be done is going to be cutting the connector end of the header. Now this end needs to be cut at 1 inch, so you need 1 inch left on the end of the header. Don't worry if you're not getting all this. We're going to go over it again on the build-ups, but that needs to be cut off as shown in this image at 1 inch in order to accept the new muffler clamp that we're going to supply with the kit. So once again, that needs to be cut off at 1 inch on the end of the header so that you can install the new muffler clamp with the CS-1 kit. And once you get the exhaust off, you get to this bracket here, which holds the brake cable and the brake light switch wire. You can take off those two nuts, move those brake lines off to the side, the brake line off to the side, and the brake wire. Here on the swing arm, this nut can be loosened up, and the brake cable can be lifted up and out of position off the swing arm, as shown in this image. Once that's out of the way, we can take off the brake switch off the forward controls. This little switch with the cotter pin needs to be removed, and that's kept. We're going to reuse that. On the left-hand side of forward controls, we're going to remove the inside bolt, and that bolt, once it comes out, you can take off the shifter assembly. Here with the reverse threaded shifter rod needs to come out. And the forward control on the left side, the shifting mechanism, is going to be reused. So on the back here, the C-clip needs to be taken out, and that shifter assembly needs to be put off to the side. We're going to reuse that. As well as the kickstand needs to come apart. So here, the Allen bolt that holds the kickstand to the bracket needs to come out, as well as the spring. So you're going to keep that Allen head bolt, spring, and kickstand to be reused with the kit. So it sounds like a lot, but in essence, that's basically how we strip the bike. Here's a shot of the bike. Front forks obviously have not been stripped. You can look at our other video showing the fork lowering of the front forks. We'll show the disassembly and reassembly of the front forks. But that's about it. Once again, all the modifications and cutting will be gone over again in detail on the build. So stay tuned.